Hey guys, this is Josh Spell. I'm the founder of Achievers Training System. For those of you who have already heard our first training, The Time of Your Life, I just want to say welcome back. Want to say this by starting off, speaking of having the time of your life, I have a blast growing this business, producing these audios, building this company, and really just watching you guys, compete in your tournaments across the state. I love developing the relationships with the guys that I'm working one-on-one with, and I like this training. Here's why. All of you who are listening to this tonight are for the large part at the top of what you guys do. There are over 1,100 junior players competing in North Carolina alone. I met upwards of 300 junior players over 24 different events this past summer. So listening to tonight's audio training is a good decision for you and for your future. Well, why, Josh? Okay, here's why. Because we're going to be talking about a few things that happen when you totally stretch yourself outside of your normal weekly practice. If you're a human being, you've probably at some point made bad decisions in your life before, just like I have, okay? Earlier this year, I was actually at the Jimmy Anderson. This is a CGA major that's kind of close to the coast. I was talking to a kid there, and he had heard one of our first audios, and he kind of started laughing at me. We talked about something like this, and he said, "You're not going to believe this, but I made a pretty bad decision last night." I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, well, it was such a bad decision. I couldn't stay in my hotel room last night. I had to sleep in my car." I was like, "Oh my gosh, what did you do?" He said, "Well, I was going through my bag and I found some old firecrackers from a beach trip I had gone on." I said, "Uh-huh." And he said, "Well, you see, they gave me this room and it had this 10-gallon aquarium, but it didn't have any fish in it. So I decided, well, I just decided if I wanted to see if firecrackers would go off underwater." I said, "Okay, well, what happened?" And he goes, "Well, me and the people below us had to find different rooms for the night." I said, "You are a moron, but you're still going to make it someday. We just need to listen to a few more audio trainings, buddy." So that's, while sometimes we don't make the best decisions, okay, this is a good decision that you're making tonight. And, you're taking time away from things that are probably maybe counterproductive, maybe taking some non-productive time like watching TV, hanging out on your phone, and you're investing time. That's a key word, isn't it? Investing time into your golf game, and you're learning something about success that will impact your golf game and impact your future. Hanging out on the phone is not going to impact your future. This is. So I was just in Wilmington working with a student of mine. His name is Jack. He just graduated high school. And it was his very last week before going off to college. What an exciting time in a young man's life, right? Pretty transitional point there. But I went down to work with him for a couple days. So I stayed with Jack and his family. I met him and his dad out on the golf course. We got to play some Eclipse golf that day, so that was pretty cool. I'd never done that before. I was looking around, I was like, "Oh my God, what's going on? This is like the Twilight Zone or something, man." So it was that was a lot of fun. Have you ever watched the golf stereotypes that Dude Perfect made on YouTube? If you haven't, it's awesome. Please look this up. It's got millions and millions of views. But there's different kinds of players in this video that always finds his golf ball guy. There's the excuses guy. There's the always has to borrow somebody else's equipment guy. And then my all-time favorite, the rage monster. So when I went to play with Jack, see, Jack's like, for real, one of the best young guys I've met doing this, especially over this year. Really nice guy, but he's got some fire on the inside, and I just want to see one time him just throw it, just barely toss the club, just something. Rage Monster's got to come out of him at one point. Hasn't happened yet, but I was out there playing with him. I just sold my Mac Daddy wedges. There's a reason for that, the Callaway ones. But so I had to borrow his wedges for the round. I bet him $1.33 that I would beat him the last 3 holes, so I won that bet with his own. I beat him with his own wedges. That was fun. When we finished up, we went back to his house. His family cooked for me. They were incredible hosting me in their house and everything. But I ate all their food. I actually slept in Jack's bed that night. I guess he slept on the floor downstairs somewhere. I don't know what happened to him. But before we went to sleep, I had to go and get a Coke Zero. That's like my sleeping potion, okay? So we were rolling out. I'd already taken my shoes off. He let me borrow his sandals. And so we roll up at the gas station. We go inside. I'm wearing his sandals. I'm buying a drink with just hanging out at the gas station. We see this guy standing in line, and he had one of those undershirt on things on, like it was with the white straps and everything. Really heavy set guy, so it was like all kind of hanging out. Wife beater, that's what he was wearing. He looked like a busted can of biscuits standing in line, just fat rolls rolling out everywhere. But after he moved out, I paid for my Coke Zero with Jack's $1.33 that I won off him off the golf course. So not only was I the borrow things off the golf course guy, I was the let me borrow half of everything that you have going on in your life for a couple of days guy. It was a really incredible day for me, at least. Like I had a lot of fun out there working with him. I hope that you guys are having fun in your careers. You're enjoying junior golf. That it is a game, guys. I know that we're here to become successful, but there's one phrase that I believe in. It's called work hard, play hard. Those of you that work with me know what I'm talking about. And so tonight we're going to get to working hard, okay? I consider those of you who are ambitious enough to listen to a training like this, you know what it tells me, and it will also tell other coaches when you let them know, hey, I'm working with some mental coach stuff, that's going to be nothing but a feather in your cap in the recruiting process. And so it tells me that you're already one of our state's top performers and you want to win more often than you're currently winning, or maybe you're a little bit younger, maybe you're a freshman or sophomore, and you don't have all the scholarship offers just yet, okay? But you truly desire to be one of our state's top performers in junior golf. I love providing training like this to you guys because to me, it's not necessarily a question of if you're willing to do the work. You're already out there doing the work. Hopefully, you're going to get a little bit inspired tonight. The story I'm going to share with you is going to challenge you, and you're actually going to, hopefully, you're going to make some changes that can greatly impact your future. I like doing this training because I really feel like you guys are going to go out and do something with this. It's not just us wasting our time here tonight. So the other thing I love here is I love the process of succeeding, and I like teaching how success works. You'll find out that when you start teaching others how to succeed at something in life, you understand it better and you become more successful in that process. But I have a passion here because I don't really come from a successful family. I love my family. I love my mom and dad. I love my brothers and sisters. But, I had a lot of fire on the inside. I don't know what kind of a family you guys come from, but maybe you find yourself with big dreams and goals on the inside. I expect you do. But, in order to become one of the top 1,100 juniors here in North Carolina, you want to keep associating with stories that you're going to hear in these trainings. You want to keep being around people that have a fire as big as yours or bigger than yours. Listen to this statement. Success leaves clues. And one of the clues is to not negotiate the price of success. Dreams have a price tag, guys. And the bigger your dream, the bigger the price tag that you have to pay is. But if you don't make sacrifices for what you want will eventually be sacrificed. You cannot negotiate the price of success, period. It is not negotiable. You must pay the price for success. And that depends on whatever your goal is, okay? Now, some people will say, some players tell me this, Josh, I'm not going to pay the price. I'm not going to do these things that you're recommending. I'm just going to go out and try and succeed my own way. I'm not willing to pay the price of success. I'm not willing to go out and study. I'm not willing to take notes on my rounds, okay? I'm not willing to read books. I'm not willing to get focused. I'm not going to delay gratification. I'm just not going to pay the price of success. And it's what most people think, and here's why. They don't really understand this, but here's what they think. If I don't pay the price of success, then I don't really have to pay a big price. And the problem is, if you don't choose yourself to pay the price of success, then you automatically choose to pay the price of failure. And the price of success that you have to pay is always short-term and temporary compared to the price of failure. The price of failure lasts forever, guys. And I'm not talking about just your junior career at this point. This is for your entire life. You can learn so much about yourself right now in this period of your life. That's why I started this training session. That's why I started this whole company, for you guys to learn some of these things. No one that succeeds at anything is ever working near as hard after they've succeeded 5 years later, 10 years later, than that initial price that they had to pay to learn to be success in the first place. No business works like that. No successful team. No successful professional athlete. Nothing out there where you always, you always have to do some work, But once you pay the price of success and you succeed at something, it's called success breeds success. Things get better. You have the right mentality. Things get easier for you to do. But you have to pay that initial price of success, and you cannot negotiate it. So when people tell me I'm not going to pay the price of success, if that's what your thought process is, here's the answer to that. Then you have to understand that by default, you are voluntarily choosing to pay the price of failure, of average, and mediocre. Golf is a game, guys, but success isn't. Success is a mentality. It is more a mentality than it is a series of actions. And if you want to succeed in junior and collegiate golf, you're going to want to decide to live as a victorious person. You want to learn to walk above your situations and circumstances, not beneath them. You want to learn to be blessed going into your day of practice and into your day of school and class, and be blessed coming out of that. You can't just turn off the success switch during school and then turn it back on. It doesn't work like that. We're going to be successful in everything that we do. And another thing you need to do is to steer clear of the negative voices that you're going to hear from other people who aren't succeeding. A few years ago, I remember meeting a big guy, really tall guy, and I asked him, man, dude, what's up, man? You had to play ball somewhere, man. Did you play college basketball somewhere? And he said, yeah, I sure did. I played over at Marquette. I said, no way. That team's definitely on the uptrend, man. What was your story there? Did you get were you one of the starters? Did you get some playing time? He said I got a little playing time, but I wasn't one of the starters. We had a pretty good thing when I was there. I said, pretty good thing going. What year did you graduate? And he said 2004. I said, oh, okay. You were there when Dwayne Wade was there. Now, for everyone listening, in case you've been living under a rock over the past decade, Dwayne Wade is one of the top 5 NBA players of the past 10 years, probably the top 30 of all time. This guy's got MVPs, championship rings, all kinds of stuff. He said, yeah, Dwayne and I were actually roommates for 3 years in college. I said, shut up for a minute. Whoa, we got to talk for a second. And I asked this guy, I was like, dude, what was your favorite time in college? What was the best memory you have in college? You know what he said? Here's what he said. He said, the thing that I think about the most when I think about college was how every Friday night, when the rest of the team, we would go off to a party, we would go hang out with our girlfriends or just a night in the town. We might go to a friend's house and play card games until 4 o'clock in the morning at one of our buddies' apartments or something. Dwayne Wade was always missing from those events. See, not only was he a great athlete, this was Maurice telling me this, his buddy Maurice, but he was a good athlete, Josh, but we all liked him. He was a really cool guy. So we were shocked he didn't come around and hang out with the team. And he said one day he had a good idea. One Friday night he had a good idea where he might be. So he went down to the gym where Marquette would play their home basketball games. Sure enough, he cracked open the door and he heard basketball sneakers streaking across the floor. And he went down there and Dwayne was running back and forth doing wind sprints. At about 9 o'clock at night, he noticed the entire gym was completely dark except for one light that was shining on one basketball rim. And this guy, he asked Dwayne, he went down there, he was like, buddy, it's Friday night. The boys are getting revved up. We've got a party coming up. You coming with us? And he asked him, he was like, well, what you doing out here? Dwayne said, I'm working on my shot. And the guy said, Dwayne, I don't think you get it. You ain't working on your shot. I see you running back and forth right now. You're here to get in shape or something, okay? Will you come with us? The party's about to start. He said Dwayne stopped. He walked up to him. He was cool about it. He was smiling, but he said this. He said, no, Maurice, I don't think that you get it. I'm working on my shot tonight. And Maurice went, Dwayne, you've already worked up a sweat. All you're doing is running back and forth to get into shape. I can see that. I haven't seen you shoot your first shot tonight. What are you doing? And Dwayne said, I'm not running to get into shape. I'm already in good shape. I'm running so I can get winded. And Maurice is like, why in the world are you doing that? Dwayne said, because when it's game time and your team sees you as the leader, which I am on our team, you don't shoot shots when you're at 100%. You shoot shots in the second quarter at 70%. You shoot shots in the third quarter at 50%. And when your whole team is looking up for you to hit the game winner, you shoot that shot when you're about 18 and 20% in the fourth quarter and you're about to give out. When Maurice was telling me this story, I was getting fired up. I absolutely love a good struggle victory story. I love a winner. And he said every Friday night, Josh, it was like clockwork. Every Friday night, Dwayne was in the gym working on shots, doing these sprints, doing whatever he did, anything he could do to get better. And I was like, man, that's probably where some of that $47 million contract came when he signed with Miami Heat, huh? He said, yeah, it was. See, you know what Dwayne Wade realized? Dwayne Wade realized that in a handful of years, I'm going to be a handful of years older. And in a handful of years, I'm going to consider going into the NBA. And the only thing that I can control right now is how prepared am I going to be a few years from now. See, a few years is coming whether y'all are ready for it or not. A few short years are going to come and go. And you are either moving forward in life or you are standing still. How do you stand still in life? By doing nothing? No, here's how you stand still in junior golf. By doing the same things that everybody else is doing. Here's the bad news to that. In the world of top performing athletics, there is no such thing as standing still. And if you think that you're doing good by keeping up with average, congratulations, you're actually moving backwards. Dwayne Wade realized this in college, which turned him into the player that we saw him become in the NBA. So I want to welcome everybody to tonight's training session with Achievers. The title of tonight's talk is Headlights at 5:30 a.m. You're about to listen to a training about commitment that you can start applying in your junior golf career, and about developing a habit that is a secret to any form of success that you're going to have for the rest of your life. This is an exciting thing to cover tonight. Now, just a heads up, in a training like this, you don't have to copy what somebody else has done, okay? You've got a different schedule than the story that I'm going to share with you tonight, but you can learn the success principle of going the extra mile in other areas of your life. Maybe you have a goal over the next 6 to 12 months to ascend within the top 20 players in the NC Junior Boys rankings. There's very special things that happen, guys, when you crack into the top 50, okay? But at some point, wherever your goal is, you have to ask yourself this question. Does the work that I put into my game match the goals that I have? And if you want to win a golf tournament, you're asking to do something that few people get to do each year, right? And then if you want to win tournaments more repeatedly, you're asking to do something that even fewer players get to do each year. So if the goal is to do something that few people are going to get to do, doesn't that mean that you're going to have to rise above the rest and do things that other junior players aren't willing to do? Of course it does. Successful people do what unsuccessful people aren't willing to do. So what is something that you can do a better job of, or get more out of your practice, or do a little bit more of, okay? We're going to talk about stretching yourself out of your weekly practice schedule, out of your comfort zone tonight, and how doing that not only causes you to practice more, but that develops a tremendous positive effect on your overall mental game if you have the right attitude. Question: how is your work ethic in your golf game? Better question: how do you judge your work ethic in your golf game? And there's two types of driving mentalities on how you guys will determine your work ethic. And here's what they are. Number one, I'm working harder than everybody around me. That's the most common one that I get. One of these is better than the other. Okay, here's the second one. The second type of work ethic is I'm absolutely giving this everything I've got, and I'm stretching myself out of my comfort zone on a weekly basis. Okay, I'm focused on the notes that I'm taking at practice. I'm listening to the audio trainings. I go into practice with the mentality of what's the most that I can get out of this, okay? Or you work harder than everybody around you. See, the first mentality is dependent on people around you. Maybe it's your high school team, okay? Maybe it's friends that you've made and you keep up with in junior golf. Maybe it's other good players at your home course, like college players at your home course or amateur players at your home course, and maybe you even put in a little bit more work than they do, but then you let their lack of activity kind of, mess with yours a little bit. Here's the problem. If you compare yourself to people that you're already outperforming, you're basically living in your past. Like, it's one thing to practice more than others, but what if they're not as committed as you are, right? You got to learn what your gifts are and that everybody has different gifts. And if you're using your gifts more than other people are using theirs, that's a very good thing, okay? What if they're not on track? What if they don't have the same goals as you have? And you're comparing yourself to someone that doesn't have the same goals? Here's a good one. What if they're better than you are and they practice less than you do? And they go, man, why are you doing all this? Reading a book? Are you out of your mind? I've never had to do that. And they shoot better scores than you do. See, they might have more talent than you do. People might have more talent than you do. But my question is, are you doing the things that you can control at the best of your ability? What I want you to realize is there's a significant difference between doing better than the rest and giving it your absolute best. Here's two different mentalities, okay? Here's the difference between a good player and a great player. Here's the difference between a good player that's going to go maybe D2, mid D1, somewhere in that, and someone that is a rock star in D1 golf. Here's the two mentalities. The good player practices until he gets it right. He goes out to the driving range, gets a lesson, he practices until he gets it right, and then he takes to the golf course. And then it's on to learning the next thing. Here's what the top performer learns how to do. Here's the future #1 player North Carolina mentality right here. They practice until they can't get it wrong. When you constantly compare yourself or compare your best to those around you, you will always stay close to them, and that's not the direction you're trying to take things. So how do you learn to stretch yourself and give yourself a work ethic and give it your absolute best? It's called association. Your desire, your dream, and your work ethic can be positively impacted by someone who is not only better than you are, but they have a better process. Well, Josh, hold on a second. Time out. You just said that if I hang around other people who are worse than me, right, then that's not good. Correct. But you just said that association is the same thing that helped me get me better. Correct. Here's why we have this training system. Because you don't have access to all the stories that I've had. You don't have access to the college coaches and their material that I have. And you don't have the training that I have access to. This is why you guys purchase this stuff, okay? To be able to hear stories and associate yourself with what you're going to hear on tonight's training session. I'm going to share a story with you guys of someone who is absolutely crushing it, and he started doing this at your age in his process. To go in the other direction with your game, away from your past and towards your future, you want to hear success stories. You want to be influenced by somebody who is down the road than you are, further down the road in their process. I mean, think about it like this. If you could practice and play every day with guys on your high school team, which you might already do that, or if you could practice and play every day with Jordan Spieth, Ricky Fowler, and Dustin Johnson, who would you rather work with? Those three stud pros, right? Why? Because you're going to get better faster. Why would you get better faster practicing with Ricky, Dustin, Jordan? And let's say that they don't even help you with your swing, okay? Let's say they don't even give you any advice. Here's why you would still get better with those guys, because they give it everything they've got in their careers, and that rubs off on the people around them. It's called getting around the heat. Now, it is not my goal to convince everybody they need to play professional golf. That is not it. It is my goal for you to learn success principles. The one we're talking about tonight is the habit of going the extra mile so that you can find out what you're capable of while you're excited about junior golf, okay? So it's called getting around the heat. When your friends in junior golf might make excuses to read in a book or to listen to an audio training like this, those three pros are already reading a book and they're already listening to a training like this. When your high school team whines and complains about the conditions of the course or how unfair that golf course was set up for that tournament, blah, 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 let's complain about everything because that's going to help things. Or how long practice is. You know what Jordan Spieth is doing? He's staying after practice to learn how to master his emotions on the driving range by visualizing himself in tough spots like he did this year at the British Open by hitting an approach shot to the driving range just like he did in that Open. It was really crazy. He was actually interviewed about that and said, you know, I've actually hit that shot time and time again, get myself out of bad situations, but I did it when I was visualizing on a driving range. That's next level practice, guys. And guess what? You're in luck tonight because this is exactly what we're going to get into. So I don't have their stories available, but this has been a year where I've gotten to know some pretty incredible people. I've gotten to meet and interviewed 15 touring professionals along the way. Tonight, you guys are in for a treat. We're going to be learning from one of those interviews and one of those players who absolutely figured out his process. But then he decided not to just get better than the people around him, but to give his game everything that he has. Jon Diianni is one of the next rising stars in professional golf that's coming out of North Carolina. Currently, he's competing in some of the hottest mini tours across the country. He's competing in the Gpro Tour, the Adams Tour. He just got back from Europe from competing over there. And traveling across the country is nothing new to Jon. He's starting to play. He started to play national events just like many of you are in junior golf. But he grew up in Kernersville, North Carolina. Played golf here in NC, and he actually, when he went off, he went to Elon University. They gave him a scholarship to go play over there. He set the lowest single season scoring average record in his team's history, his senior year of college. I just got to see him again over at the Webb Simpson Challenge, which was held at Mid-Pines. So I went to 24 junior events, right, and 2 college matches this year. All of these tournaments were good. TYGA, phenomenal for entry-level competition. The TGF is fantastic. Y'all playing a lot of those events. I'll tell you right now, the CGA Majors is set up spectacular work. Jason Cox is fantastic with that. That's where you're going to be competing against the best players across the state. But here's the deal. All of these tournaments fall short of the Webb Simpson Challenge. Between the CGF leaders that you have there, the food, the games that you get to play, but the competition is real there. And here's the thing. You get to learn from a major championship winner, Webb Simpson, and you get to hear directly from him on how to become a better player. You get to hear directly from people who are further down the road of success than you are, that are just stunning college athletes at this event. They get to share back with you on things they've done to help succeed in golf. And so I was at this event, and Jon was over here. He's like, Jon Diianni is like having a super cool big brother, okay? He would watch like this little sophomore kid stripe a drive. He'd go, "Whoa, dude. What do you got, like a double X stiff shaft in that driver or something?" The kid would go, "No." He just kind of smiled, "No, I don't." And Jon would say, "Well, you should, because that was piped and you're a total stud." I mean, people like to be around Jon. When the tournament got started, they did a shotgun start. Webb Simpson, his partner, and the CGF leaders, they had all planned to make history that day. They wanted to break the Guinness Book of World Record for the fastest hole in golf ever played. So when the tournament got started, we took a convoy of golf carts. This is so cool. Over to the opposite side of the golf course. And Mark Bentley's the founder of the Webb Simpson Challenge. When you guys go to this event, I encourage you to meet Mark. He's a really cool guy. He's Webb's partner. He brought out a drone that he has to get some sick footage of everything. I was selected to be the guy to do the timing, so I timed everything on my phone. So I used my stopwatch there, but there were about a dozen others out videoing this, so we got an official score, right? Jonathan Diianni was our main man hitting the T-ball. I look over at Corky Kemp, who heads up the CGF. I was like, "Psst, Corky, psst, hey, Corky." He goes, "Yes, Josh." I said, Hey, why does Jon get to drive the golf ball? Like, why is he doing it?" He goes, "Well, you know how he's sponsored by Ping, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, they have a driving range, and there's this sign out by their facility. It says Bubba Watson is the only person to ever hit it over the net at the end of the driving range." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, Jon's hitting the T-ball today because, well, that's when he saw that sign, he smiled, he laughed at it, and then he hit his T-ball 30 feet over the air, or over the net in the air at the back of the driving range." So I was like, "So now it's Jonathan Diianni and Bubba Watson?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Cool." I said, "Hey, Diianni, psst, hey, Jonathan Diianni." He looks at me. I say, "Send it." And so he blasts his drive. He split the fairway. I start driving my cart. My job is to get the timing. Now, I had to start it whenever they were hitting on the tee box. It's a par 5, so I have to go to where they hit it in the hole. I'm driving my cart up to the green. Webb Simpson is sprinting beside me. He's a couple feet away from me, and he is sprinting up the fairway as this ball is rolling out. I have to keep driving my cart. He stops. The drone is flying over us, catching all this on video and everything. He absolutely laces a 5-iron. I just run up and listen. The guys that have the record right now is the European Tour guys. They have it at 34.5 seconds. I clocked us in at about 34 seconds. Now, it's not official because mine wasn't on video. The European Tour players, they still have this record. And really, while we're on this, here's what you have to understand. America is better than Europe at everything. So the moral of this story that I'm giving you is we tried to bring it home this year. come out to the Webb Simpson next year, and we're going to bring that home to America. So that's just one of the things that we did at the tournament. And that's just one of the things that Jon gets to do now that he's chasing his dream. I don't have time into going into how that drone that was flying over later turned into target practice on the clinic that Webb Simpson had with him and a young guy named Bo. That was pretty cool. So let's get into our story here. Okay. Jon Diianni totally figured out some things in his process when he was a sophomore in high school. If you've ever been at a point in your game where you were just fed up with not moving forward, I mean a point where you're making it like every week, your home course, you're playing tournaments, you're taking lessons, or you're not taking lessons, whatever you're doing to get better. You have a few decent weeks, but the scoring just doesn't stay. And you were like, what gives? Jonathan was a sophomore in high school, and he was fed up with not moving forward. He was listening to a training similar to this about how to just move on, how to be a little bit radical. Okay, so he got radically inspired from an audio training similar to this, and he noticed that his swing instructor kept mentioning to him short game. We got to work on some short game a little bit more. Maybe y'all have heard the same thing. But he kept hearing about this, and let's focus here for a bit and work on short game. He wasn't quite there. So Jon had a notorious work ethic on his team. It's definitely one of his strengths, but he made a defining decision when he was 16 years old. When he was a sophomore in high school, he had already adjusted his schedule to where he could focus more on his short game. He didn't want to just take away from other things he was working on. This is key. Y'all been waiting to hear what the training's about, right? This is key, okay? He decided that just switching out some of his other practice time for doing some wedge work wasn't good enough. And he said because that's what every single other decent junior player does. Your driver gets off for a few rounds. What do? You go back to the range and you put in some more work there. Driver starts getting solid. You're rocking it. And then the iron slipped back. And so now the next month we're putting in work on our iron game, and we're trying to get that back and going again. We're trying to put our focus there. Here's what Jon said to himself. He said, you know what? Why don't I do something completely different I've never done before? So that Monday, he set his alarm for 5 o'clock in the morning. And he wasn't a member of a golf club. In fact, the closest golf course to him was about 25 minutes away, and it was out of the way from going to school. So he set his alarm for 5 o'clock in the morning, convinced his mom to make him an omelet in the morning. So it's one less thing that he had to do that morning to get ready for school. So he had already have his book bag packed the night before. When he woke up, he was ready to hit the road. He was ready to roll, baby. But he got into his car and he drove to school. Now, wait a second. Why in the world would he drive to school? There's a lot of school districts here in North Carolina, right? Nobody starts at 6 o'clock in the morning. Jon drove straight from his house to his school's soccer field. And he had these alignment rods he made up, and he had reflectors on them. And so he walked out into the soccer field, and he walked out about every so many yards, 5-8 yards or so, he would stick these alignment rods down with the reflectors in them down to the ground. He would walk all the way out to 65 yards, 85 yards. The whole time he said he felt like he was an idiot because, I mean, this was his first time doing this. They were getting back into school. It was fall, so it was kind of cooler in the mornings. He'd walk back in the dewy grass and his feet would get completely soaked. And so he would hear owls like screeching and hooting at him, in the night. I mean, it's 5:30 in the morning. It's still basically nighttime. And so he reached back into his car. He flipped on the high beams of his car and his headlights came on. And when they did, that whole field basically lit up because of all those reflectors that were all over the field. And there were different colors to different yardages. So he brought out his 3 wedges, a shag bag full of golf balls, and he started hitting shots at those reflectors. And he said that he could get this down pat to where he would get started by 5:30 in the morning, and he would have enough time to do 2 hours of wedge practice before school. Then he would get all finished up. He'd gather everything up, and then he'd go to school. After he started doing this for a few weeks, his coach came up to him, and he was like, Jon, come here for a second. And he was like, yeah, coach. He was like, there's something different about your game. And Jon just kind of smiled and said, well, we'll just leave that as my little secret. And then other players started noticing his chipping around the greens and short game from inside 100 yards was literally like, they said it was like catching fire. I mean, everybody else started to notice it. But there was one guy that kind of knew what was going on all along. And he was on the team. It was his brother. Of course, he lives with him, so he would know, right, if he's leaving to go practice a little bit earlier. So one day, his brother wanted to tag along, so it was actually his older brother. It was his older brother and John. They went and they turned this into a game. And then before you know it, another teammate would come, and then another one, and then another. And then before you know it, there's like 4 or 5 guys out practicing short game 2 hours before school starts. And they eventually went from doing that 1 to 2 days a week to where they started they turned it into a tournament to see who could do this the most. They would go 4 and 5 times a week. One morning, John was the only one out there. And when he was hitting golf balls, he said this guy came kind of walking up, and it kind of started him a little bit. Every time I tell this story, I think of Will Smith as Bagger Vance, like walking up to Randolph Juna. Every time. Just Juna, you got to find you one true, authentic swing. And it's just, it's what happened. So, but this guy came walking up to John, and he was like, "What in the world are you doing out here?" And John's like, "Man, I'm not trying to cause any trouble or anything. I'm just practicing my game." This guy smiled at him, and he said, "Kid, you're not just practicing your game. You really want this, huh?" And John said, "You have no idea." The guy gave John his card, and he said, "If you ever need help getting your professional career started when you graduate college, give me a call." John didn't know it, but this was one of the coaches for one of the schools. He was a volunteer. He was actually a wealthy businessman who had donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to a local college there. John went on to play Elon. He holds the school's lowest single scoring average by his senior year, and then he made that phone call to that guy that he had met. You want to talk about a life-changing phone call? That guy is now his sponsor that's putting him in to some of these professional events he's playing now. So we're going to focus on 3 things that we learned from that story, okay? It's not mandatory for you guys to go out and practice at your soccer field or anything. I'm not saying that. It's an idea, and if you want to go try it, I'm not going to stop you, okay? That's going to help you out. But listen to this. How much God-given talent did it take for our buddy John to get up and go practice wedges 2 hours before school starts? 0. That takes no talent. How much talent did it take for Dwayne Wade to, instead of go hang out with his buddies every Friday night for parties, to instead to go to the gym and master his craft every Friday night? It takes 0 talent, correct? That's all desire, which is something that you can control, and it's a decision that's something that anybody can make. We're going to learn 3 things that happens anytime that you decide to go beyond where you've gone before. It's called going the extra mile, and that's what this training is all about tonight. That's exactly what John did in that story. Number 1, it increases your self-image. Going the extra mile increases your self-image. What is self-image? Self-image is simply, what do you expect out of yourself and out of your life? Self-image controls how big your dreams and goals are. It controls the quality of people that you hang out with. It sets your expectations for what's going to happen in your career. Does self-image matter in golf, Josh? Is this a little too deep? Guys, every good mental coach teaches self-image. Self-image is huge, huge. Every single world-class mental coach spends time with their students on how to have a proper self-image in their goals. And they teach this stuff. So it's when you say you're going to win one of the next tournaments you're playing in, but truly on the inside, you very much doubt that you're going to be able to. That's where your real self-image is. I'll say it like this. Your talent can take you in golf where your character and self-image can't keep you. If you build your self-image, for those of you I've talked to about, hey, you're getting better, you're going to start leading tournaments, you're going to start being that number 1, number 2 spot. If you don't see yourself as that good of a player, your scores fall right back down to the level that your self-image can handle every time. It's exactly how it works. So how can you increase your self-image? One's results, okay? Results grow your self-image, stretching yourself. Everybody knows that shooting lower scores does that. But tonight, what I'm doing is I want to teach you guys a secret on growing your self-image before the results ever get there. So what's the other way? The habit of going the extra mile. Personal development. Growing from the inside out. Jon Diianni was a 16-year-old high school student. He got super inspired when he heard a training similar to what you're listening here. And he set his alarm clock for 5 o'clock in the morning to get up so he could practice wedges 2 hours before school starts. And the next morning when his alarm clock went off, John had a choice, didn't he? He made a choice that started a life-changing process in his life. His entire life changed by making this choice of going the extra mile. This is how big this is, guys. I asked Jon, what on earth got you to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning? He said, Josh, I knew in the grand scheme of things I was average, but I didn't want to stay that way. And so I stopped making excuses and I started making adjustments. See, what happens when you do things that you've never done before? When you stretch yourself past self-imposed limitations that you've placed in your life, something changes on the inside of you. Number 2, going the extra mile opens up doors you did not know exist. Something special happens that only happens on the extra mile. I'm going to call it this. Something almost magical happens when you're going the extra mile. Few people ever go there. Have you ever heard that average people tend to take the path of least resistance? Jon took a different path. Heck, he cut down his own path because he was the only one that was out there doing that. And then what happened on his team? Remember, people started coming up and they started noticing what he was doing first with his results, right? Nobody knew what he was doing, but then they started hearing about it. And then 1 to 2 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week, the whole team started going out there. And Jon said everybody was having a blast. Like, here's what's cool. They would go into school and like people would be asking them in algebra 2 or something, like some of the other guys in basketball, you know, that used to make fun of them. I'm sure y'all have dealt with this for making fun of being on the golf team, whatever. They're like, you know, what y'all talking about? Practice. Well, practice this morning. They were like, what you talking about practice this morning? I don't get it. You practice in the afternoons, don't you? And then Jon and his buddies on the team were like, I don't know what y'all do in basketball, but for us, we get started practice at 5:30 in the morning. We've been here since 5:30. It's 10:30 in the morning. Our days, we've been here a long time. Just blow away the commitment level of everybody else in their school. I absolutely love hearing that. Here's the second thing that happens. That when the doors open that you didn't know exist, here's what happened. Jon Diianni met that wealthy business owner that came walking up to him and saw what he was doing, and he gave him his card, who later became his sponsor for his professional career. So there's 2 things that happen that open up doors that you didn't know exist. Number 1, that's when his whole team started going out there and practicing with him. He said that made it so much more fun and easy for him to actually keep waking up and going and doing that. And then number 2, he met his future sponsor in his professional career. So number 3, what does going the extra mile do? It directly impacts results, short term. This helped him get started with better results for where his teammates started seeing everything, okay? That's where everybody started asking, have you seen Diianni lately, right? From 100 yards and in, he was just blowing the doors off of people. And, you know, everybody else, instead of making excuses, they started going out there with him. And Jon's mentality was the same thing. He started making adjustments instead of making excuses. You know what? It's no wonder to me why Jon Diianni went on to make history at his future college. You want to talk about results? Here's the other part of the results. When you learn how to have the habit of going the extra mile, it stays with you. Of course, he's not going to stick on wedges, but he knows how to go the extra mile in his iron game. He knows how to do it in his mental game. He knows how to do it in every area of his golf game. Now, that's why, and he will tell you, that's one of the reasons why he was able to make history at his future college. I was working with one of my players this summer. He's in the top 30 on the NC Junior Boys ranking, so he's one of the top 30 players in the entire state. He had just won the TYGA Tournament of Champions by 7 strokes. He was the winner of the TYGA Bojangles back in June. But he started to get this work ethic thing going, and we started working on this stuff together. And then we were at the Dogwood doing a training session, and he kind of, after his tournament, he looked out and he said this. He's such a fun kid to be around. He goes, you know, there seems to be a direct correlation between the top 20 players in the state and all those guys out there on the range right now. And I looked and we were naming one guy after another. Like, yeah, he's number 5. Yeah, he's number 12. I think that guy just got to number 2. He's been trending a lot. But this was after the Dogwood. This was after everybody had already gone out and played. And what Pierce recognized, he keeps figuring out we're working on a schedule. As he keeps working on his schedules, he keeps stretching himself in his own work ethic. He's going to find himself before long in the top 20 players in North Carolina. He's going to find himself in the top 10 players. He's that kind of a player. But it's just funny how these guys will start recognizing a pattern of success. And you just got to look for these things, guys. The way that Pierce is looking for that, going out and practicing each time after your tournaments, like at the dogwood or whatever. That's going the extra mile, isn't it? It's why don't players succeed after hearing answers like they're hearing in this right now in order to make their game go to another level? You have to eliminate distractions. Wasting time on things that won't impact your future when you could invest time into doing something that would. That's why I congratulate you guys on listening to this tonight. Well, I would go and practice, Josh, after my lesson or after my training and everything, my tournaments, but it's not for my school and grades. I got to keep an eye on that. Listen, guys, I'm not saying don't work on your grades. Don't use that against me, okay? You got to, successful people figure this stuff out. You have to maximize your schedule so you can prepare at a higher level than what you're currently doing. Distractions are the enemy to focus. And sometimes you're not preparing at the highest level because your cell phone is more important than your practice. Because Instagram is more important than practice. Because watching TV shows is more important than reading. Because Snapchat is more important than one more putting drill. Right? So if you want to become a successful person, successful people do what unsuccessful people aren't willing to do. And sometimes you have to look and check your attitude to see if you're being stubborn here or if you're willing to make some changes, like Jon Diianni was willing to make some changes. And so you have to learn who to listen to. You have to learn to believe in something that hasn't happened yet. I need some real answers, Josh. Give me some real answers. I get this all the time. Guys, I've been giving them to you. But you don't have to have every single answer to all of your questions answered in order to start stepping out in great faith. You have to learn how to go in the strength that you have. I believe that God has placed the seeds of greatness on the inside of each and every single one of you. And you know what the best part is? When you have enough talent, like all of you guys do, success is just a decision. What's one of the answers I've given you guys tonight? The habit of going the extra mile. Jon Diianni was a young junior player who decided to start going the extra mile. But Josh, it sounds like it's going to be hard. I know. And so you're left with a choice. It's two paths that you can take. And you have a choice. You have a choice. Not your swing coach. Not me. It's not mom and dad's choice to make. It's not the complacent players who will try and talk you out of doing more and more things in your life, okay? It's not your future college coach's choice. You can take the path of least resistance in everything in your golf career, the easier path, and keep doing some of the things that you've been doing, or you can get excited about chasing a big dream in your junior career, and you can start doing things that you've never done before that's going to stretch you outside your comfort zone and lead to greater things. But it's all your choice. I've enjoyed my time with all of you tonight. God bless you guys. I'll be seeing y'all in the fairways and the greens and in your tournaments in this upcoming year. Take care, guys.